Hello, my friends, and welcome to Quartet. I'm John Petersen from the Arlington Institute, and I'm joined today by a trio of friends, of big thinkers on the leading edge of the big change that's happening in the world today. Gregg Braden, New York Times bestselling author. Gregg, nice to have you with us today.
It's so good to be with everyone. I'm really looking forward to this program today, John. Thank you.
Yeah, and Penny Kelly, Dr. Penny Kelly, naturopathic doctor, author of many 16 books and so on. Nice to have you with us.
It is great to be here. It is really nice to be with people who do think. So,
And Kingsley Dennis, our sociologist, PhD friend from across the pond in Britain. Nice to have you with us today.
Thank you, John. A pleasure as always.
And our topic today is technology the Antichrist? And I asked you all to watch the film, the wonderful documentary, The Social Dilemma, which was one of the most powerful documentaries that I've seen in a very, very long time. That essentially made the case that social media is completely in control of this younger generation, that this is really a different time, a different period, that the character of what is happening, the kind of the essence of what is happening in our societies, in Western societies, at least across this planet, are all fundamentally changing, being driven by the technology and the algorithms that are driving and pushing us all into a new space. And it's very, very sophisticated. You can make the case, for instance, that this has been in the works for decades, been laying the groundwork to do this kind of conditioning of the environment into the space. And it's now getting to the place where observers are noticing that there are explicit kind of social large-scale hypnotic mechanisms and processes that are being used. Kind of the essence of this film said that what it is turning, what this technology is doing is turning viewers and users of these devices into products, and that these products are primarily used for corporations to drive consumer decisions and to drive advertising. Now, the interesting thing I thought, and the criticism that I had about this film was that it said that the ultimate objective is just profits, and that this is but for the corporations that are driving this to make money. And they completely bypass the possibility that, in fact, that governments and in general and intelligence agencies in particular may be behind a goodly part of what is going on here. That's not just wild speculation. You can clearly run the trap lines and figure out that Google was funded initially by the CIA, and so was Facebook, and that they have a corporation called In-Q-Tel that puts money into these kinds of capabilities and these kinds of platforms. And then, of course, because they're first-in investors and so on, that comes in with a certain set of criteria. And certainly they have access to that information. So you could see that it could be used clearly for profits, but it also could be used for politics and for other kind of changes in terms of the whole kind of corpus, the whole society. And if we try to drop this into the space where all of us come from and the way we look at the world, there's some very interesting things that come out of the Gnostic Gospels and the Essenes, and they, if you'll remember that they talk about the fact that there are two kind of eons, two of these massive, extraordinarily creative, powerful forces that have come from the central creator of all, and that they are playing an integral part in this planet, in the earth. One of them is Sophia, who is about nature, and Christos, who is about personal development. And Christos is all about the kinds of things we all in this group have given our lives to. We've given our lives to the idea that we as individuals can rise to an occasion and expand our consciousness and our awareness and be part of this evolutionary push into a new kind of space. And if you see that on one side and the technology on the other side, you kind of come to the conclusion, or I have, or at least ask the question and say, is technology the Antichrist? I mean, this is antithetical to kind of this principles about Christos and personal development. And maybe we've kind of identified and described this major schism that's going on here in these kinds of terms. And so the question I have for all of you today is technology the Antichrist? Do you think that's the case? Is that kind of a good way to describe all of this? And let's go around the table one at a time and give you all a chance to kind of talk about it. Gregg?
Well, John, I think this is probably the most fundamental conversation that we could have, and there are so many layers from which to view what is happening, and you've described some of those layers. None of it's going to make any sense unless we go to the foundation. So I'm going to answer the question, and then I'll share with you why I believe what I believe. From my perspective, technology is not the Antichrist. Technology is paving the way for the consciousness that we call the Antichrist. Technology cannot be, by definition, it can't be right, wrong, good, or bad. It's how it's applied. And what we are seeing is a battle playing out in consciousness. It is a fundamental battle. It is an ancient battle between good and evil, light and dark. Technology is facilitating that battle in ways that we've never seen before. And one of the ways where this is really coming to a focus is that the human body can only sustain a level of consciousness that is allowed through the genome and the way that the genome is configured to hold frequency. And when we begin to change that genome, and there are all kinds of ways that can happen through environment, through consciousness, and through technology. When we begin to change that genome, we risk the possibility of losing our ability to hold that fundamental frequency that allows us to be the greatest expression of ourselves. So in the questions that we have, we refer to Christos, the man that we know as Christ. It's referred to in the Essene Gospels that you mentioned. From my research, my scholarship, and the explorations I've had, there was a physical man. His name was Jesus, or Jesus, and he anchored the potential for what we may aspire to, the potential for the human genome and what we can accomplish in his time. And the technology today is paving the way for just the antithesis of that, a physical being that is very willing to take us in another direction. And our willingness to follow the technology that disempowers us, that steals from us the very essence of the extraordinary potential that we have as humans, that is what's at stake right now. So that the technology, depending on how it's used, is paving the way for us to either become the greatest versions of ourselves or to give ourselves our very humanness away. And we talked about this in Quartet number 1, the transhuman movement, replacing the human body with machines and technology. This, I think, is the fundamental question. For me, the other things are important, but they are masking this most fundamental battle between good and evil, light and dark, and you've characterized it here as the Antichrist and the role that technology plays. So I'll stop there, but this is, I think it's probably one of the most fundamental questions we can ask ourselves today.
I would agree with Gregg that it's a fundamental issue of our time, because technology is the playing field where many forces are now in contestation. And actually to call it anti-Christ or anti-Christos, actually, there's more to it than just what may come behind those words, because I'm reminded of Rudolf Steiner. And Rudolf Steiner, 100 years ago, in the first decade of the 20th century, was actually saying that electricity is a form of fallen light. And therefore, electricity represents a kind of sub-nature, whereas light represents nature. Electricity and the forces that work through electricity are operating in a realm of sub-nature. And Steiner pointed towards specifically Luciferic and what he called Ahrimanic forces, the forces of Ahriman. And these forces, said Steiner, were coming to the fore as the 20th century went on and further. And what these forces do is that they move towards their de-evolutionary forces. They are pushing back against the order of natural evolution, especially through humanity. And they're trying to push this epoch into greater materiality, a denser materiality, a materiality whereby humanity gradually, like you said, the boiling frog syndrome, humanity loses its contact with source in a way which is subtle or non-obvious, because humanity is getting further and further embedded in a false reality. And so electricity, of course, is the medium, the fallen light medium, that is now powering our ecosystem and infrastructure of technologies. So it's working through the medium of technology. And through this medium, it's as if it's replacing, we're having a replicant reality. The reality of nature and natural forces and the senses of the human are being replaced by, as we say, a kind of hyper reality, a simulation whereby we're not touching everything directly. We're going through an intermediary. We're going through a device, which will then, of course, will then be a kind of augmented reality. So we're losing this contact with a sensual reality. And that, of course, takes us away further from, let's say, an inherent and essential contact with source. So to take it further, we can say that electricity and AI is similar to source and natural light. The more that AI runs through electricity, the more that we're being taken away from natural light and a natural connection with source. And we can see that through our own behavior. How many times are we trying to get onto a website and they say, prove you're human by counting how many of these squares has a fire hydrant, or how many has traffic lights? And you're looking and you think, I think that's a traffic light, and you press it. And then it says, wrong, try again. And at the end of it, you feel dehumanized. And so I think that gives us a sense of what type of intelligence is running through technology. And it's, we can feel it's not a human one, or what we come to know as human. So as you said, John, the film, The Social Dilemma, looked at the physical aspect, the material 3D aspect, where you have the intelligence agencies operating through it, and also you have the profit, commercial kind of power industry through that. But behind it, I think there's a very, very strong metaphysical presence to look at the energies that are being utilized through the infrastructure of technology. It's a big question, but that's a summation.
Just wow, wow, wow. I wanted to interrupt 20 times for both of you guys. So I'm going to start out by saying I don't really like the idea of characterizing anything using religious terms. I think religion, we are moving past religion. It's a control mechanism, but it's really, it's something that is such a core part of so many people's lives, and they don't really have a replacement language or replacement point of view. So that said, what I see technology doing is being used as a soft kill kind of approach to what is happening to all of us. So I'm a farmer. You do not raise your children to not know how to survive. So what I see happening with the technology is millions of young people are being hypnotized by this screen. They are caught up in that, hypnotized is a good word. What happens when somebody shuts off the electricity or the internet goes down? What happens to those kids, those young people? Do they know how to do anything to survive? Can they grow food? Can they take care of animals? Can they fix equipment? Can they repair houses? Can they heal? Can they do anything other than watch a screen? And one of the legacies of the education system that we have is a legacy of know that, not know how. And what I see this screen doing, even though I have some other comments to make about the value and the importance of technology and how we fit and how it fits in our life, right now, what will be one of the forces of transformation is being used as an attack force in the same way that the current medical problem that we pretend we're having is being used. And so this is a very, very important question. And I'll stop there for now.
Well, why don't we move into that kind of space, Penny, and you can run with this. So what is going to be the role, or what should be the role of technology? Because it's not going to go away. It's going to be an increasing component of our lives necessarily. And the question is, what's the mindset? What is the approach that you take to all of this, that you integrate and you utilize it, but don't let it control you?
Exactly. So I have a little different view maybe of this whole technological thing. And that comes out of my own learnings and experience with consciousness and my research into consciousness over 40 years. So I'll make this statement and then we can maybe go back and forth or even ignore it, but this is where I'm coming from. The goal, the destiny of the human, of the earth human, is to choose to become part physical and part spiritual, and to develop both of those aspects to an extremely high degree of proficiency and profound power.
I think it's important to say that we started off by looking at the dangers around technology. We're not saying technology is bad. We are obviously pinpointing that technology is the arena that now is obviously a point of contestation, and it's an opportunity because obviously it's a tool, and our opportunity is how we use this tool, and the issue is, are we in a state or consciousness of how to use it? But I think you made a valid point by saying that the kind of privilege and the advantage of humanity is that it's at this merging point where it's merging the intangible realm of the spirit with a physicality, a material dimension, a material realm. And, that is a very difficult thing to juggle. As you say, you can make a choice by going into this area or that area, but, we use words like spiritualizing the material. Let's get past those words. What we're trying to do is we're trying to move in an evolutionary direction that we can grow as spiritual beings, and we are in a physical realm. And so we need to merge with the physicality around us and make that be a part of our evolutionary path. We need to go into a soulful development. So the question is, how can we manage a merger between a soulful technology with a evolutionary directive of humanity?
If you want to spiritualize material, you have to raise the amount of energy that material can hold without just being it being a throughput. What is the natural spirit of yourself? What do you like to do? What do you like to be? That's the true definition of spirituality, is to develop the real self. And that can only really happen when we begin to hold more energy in the system, in the physical system that we are.
So it's perfect. That goes back to the first 10 minutes of this conversation. And John, this goes back to the first 2 minutes of your conversation and even to last week. I believe that we are living an op. It's a psychological operation. It is, I'm in awe of the design and the success and the implementation. It's been going on over 100 years, where we have been conditioned, we as in our generation, and we continue this with the young generation. We've been conditioned to believe that we are flawed as biological beings, that we are a flawed species by nature, by birth. And the church contributes to that. From the moment you emerge into this world, there's something that's not right. That's what we're all taught. And the savior is the technology. So Penny, what you're describing is what my indigenous, my native friends here in the desert Southwest say all the time, is that the evolution of our soul is dependent upon our ability to scale our biological technology. If we replace this with chemicals and computer chips in wires, they are not scalable. We can't access those higher realms. We can't develop spiritually. And so the dumbing down of our young people and the belief they have that they are flawed as beings, they will jump at the technology that will prevent them from reaching their highest spiritual potential. This is the fundamental battle that I was mentioning the first 10 minutes, light and dark. It's an ancient battle, but now the technology has reached a point where that battle is going to come to a focus. Something's going to give.
And in particular, the thing that's really kind of, central to this whole question is the subliminal nature of this, and that it's not obvious what is going on. I think it was Bill Casey, kind of famously, who was the director of Central Intelligence for Ronald Reagan. Some of the information about MK Ultra had just come out, and somebody asked him, well, should we start developing some technology that where we can do kind of mind control for across the whole American people? And his response was, we don't need any mind control. We've got television.
And what if that world shuts off?
What does that mean?
Somebody pulls the plug, kills the grid. What are all those people who are engaged in that kind of passing of the day going to do?
I've seen actually a direct example of what you're talking about. I was leading a group into Peru before COVID. Two fathers brought their teenage sons on this trip to bond with them. They flew out of the Miami airport, and the night before they left, the two sons went to a party where their cell phones were stolen. And the next morning, they got on a plane to go to Peru for 2 weeks with no contact with their friends, with their texts, with games, with any kind of internet access. And I got to watch them go through the deprogramming and the withdrawal. In the first few days, they were angry, they were depressed, they slept a lot, they wouldn't get out of bed to join us. And it took almost the full 2 weeks for them to become, and their fathers said to me, this is the first time I've seen my son become themselves. They almost were sorry to go back.
It's interesting how many people in the world today are afraid to be bored. They class it as being something really negative. It's like, if I have nothing to do, then I'm wasting my time. It's as if we're being programmed into activity. Technology creates its own Faraday cage, which is like it shields us with a vibration, with a resonance, and we tune into it, because what it's done, it's taking one energetic ecosystem, and technology is replacing another electronic ecosystem. And this is where we see in this kind of division in people, what you talked about at the beginning of today's talk, is that some people are tuned into another energetic ecosystem, and others are with this Faraday cage of technology. And if it all goes down, there's going to be that shock of like silence. We could be coming to that shock if there is going to be some kind of cyber attack, who knows? But, we are in technology ecosystems, and one of them is being hijacked.
The underlying theme of the technologies, it's being used to create fear. And that same technology can be used to create love, but it's being used to create that fear. And if the grid goes down and all people know is fear, I think, John, this is the global revolution that you're talking about. It's the dividing of the alliances. A civil war isn't just about the power structure, it's about one another. And that is what makes us vulnerable to a new structure, a new power structure that comes sweeping in and says, oh, I'm going to fix this all. That is the definition of the Antichrist. Yeah.
Some of it has to do with the sources. What do you use the technology for? I mean, what are you feeding yourself from this thing?
One of the laws of consciousness is that it is the nature of consciousness to create. So if you don't have very many options, and the world is seen as a dangerous place, and your parents don't let you do anything, go anywhere. I mean, when I grew up, we roamed town, we rode bikes miles and miles away, we were gone, you know, it was a free world. That's not the world that these kids are into now. And so because the law of consciousness is to gobble experience, and that experience, it doesn't matter if it's imaginary or if it's real, that's what the power of that piece of technology is that everybody holds in their hand. It provides a substitute set of experiences, and we cannot go against that need to create experience, because that is how the human evolves. And unfortunately, most of that technology out there is not evolutionary in its presentation of information.
What we haven't talked about is how you could overtly kind of use the technology to shape the emergent new world, which is something here at the Arlington Institute we're particularly interested in terms of building a global community, an online global community, in ways in which these kinds of ideas and the new sense of where the world is going and scenarios and a number of other kind of things can help inform those of us and those who are interested in this alternative path, what could be down the line and how you could contribute to that and what the new world might look like. And so this has been a delightful conversation. And we've wandered around a number of areas around the edges of this, but the whole basic idea, I think, is that that this is about an attitude of value shift, is the essential shift in who we are that then influences how we use the technologies and the capabilities that are available to us. So thank you very much for this conversation. And for those of you who are viewing this, we want to thank you for being with us and hope that you will, in particular, put some comments in the section down below. We have enjoyed the comments that showed up in this in the last 2 weeks, and we've distributed them to all of our panelists here, and we've all responded very positively. And I hope that you'll continue to put any questions or comments that you have, and we'll see if we can integrate them into our downstream kind of conversations. And then, of course, tell your friends about this and share it and do likes and all of those kinds of things, and so that as many people as possible have a chance to participate in all of this. And so it'll be interesting when we come back and you come back to be with us in 2 more weeks when we come together with Quartet again. So thank you all, and thank you for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in another 2 weeks.